So, I think when you ask most people what their least favorite game of the Ezio trilogy is, it's almost always going to be Revelations. Ezio is older, the original side characters are mostly gone, and the story is completely disconnected from Ezio's Italian arc. These are all common arguments for why Revelations is, well, the worst. And now some of these do have a bit of merit to them, but some of these arguments are a little bit disingenuous. Revelations had a whole lot to prove when it was coming out in 2011, just over a decade by now. It had to live up to the legacy of one of the most important characters in Assassin's Creed, as well as finish off the story of the fan favorite Ezio. I think it's fair to say that Revelations had a lot on its plate at the time. It had to end two different character arcs and wrap them up nicely with a bow. Beside losing our favorite protagonist, it also would have to take the series to a place that we've never seen before. Gone are our favorite little areas of Italy, and onto the much darker and less vibrant areas of Constantinople. And with this many changes, I'm sure people were going to be very upset at where the series was going. And naturally, they were going to be mad at this change. But without further ado, here's my non-nostalgic review of Assassin's Creed Revelations. As I mentioned earlier, this was going to be the wrapping up of Ezio's storyline and the departure from all that we know and love. And this may be a controversial opinion, but I've really liked how they wrapped up his story. Ezio lives his best life and leaves the series forever. Yeah, it's kinda sad that the only recurring character from outside of Revelations is Claudia, but it seems like Ubisoft was going in and going to start changing things. I mean, this was the end of an era after all, and with the end of an era comes the conclusion of Altair ibn La-Ahad. Not only is this Ezio's final game, this was also the legendary assassin Altair's, showing us all he accomplished since his time reforming the Brotherhood and the moments leading up to his death in Masyaf Castle. Revelations had the huge job of ending two different characters in a satisfying way. Now, I can't comment on how Altair's end fits his character since I have played every game beside AC1. However, I can talk about how they showed his character off. Altair is practically regarded as a saint by the other assassins of his time, and he just feels like he gets this legendary respect around him in all of his scenes. It just has this mysticism around him while he's on screen. Because not only is he this legendary assassin figure, he's also someone who would be amazing to see in person for these assassins. I don't know much about him. All I know is this guy is a legend after his reformation of the Brotherhood in the Crusades. The game has a very good job of displaying this in a very simplistic but powerful manner. And Altair isn't the only one who gets this respect. Ezio also receives the same treatment in the 16th century. Like Altair before him, Ezio is regarded as the legend we all know him to be. He practically built the Roman Brotherhood from the ground up. He is the master assassin of his time. And since then, as a youthful Italian, he has learned quite a lot. He's an extremely wise man who everyone respects. But with that wisdom does come a price. As most of you know, Ezio is a lot older in Revelations, being around 50. And with his increasing age, he also needs increasing help to do things, in particular, climbing. So, Ubisoft came up with a great workaround for Ezio's aging problem, the hook blade. The hook blade acts as an extension of Ezio's hand. It's a hidden blade, but it's a hook. It's exactly what the name describes. With the addition of the hook blade, Ubisoft also adds some more skill to parkouring. Every time the hook blade retracts, it can give Ezio a boost with the right timing. It's kind of like slingshotting yourself off a wall in a way. And people who have a good thing with timing are going to have a ball with the movement of Ezio in Revelations. Other than that, movement remains practically the same, except with the addition of ziplines that can be used to traverse the map a little faster using the hook blade. And so while we're on the topic of rooftops, let's talk about Constantinople, or what is nowadays modern Istanbul. Constantinople is not Rome or Florence at all. Gone are the bright and vibrant whites that make up much of the Italian cities, and replaced by darker grays and blacks of the Turkish city. The architecture is also wildly different from what we've come to expect from the Ezio trilogy. I mean, after all, we did travel miles east of Italy, so of course it makes sense for the architecture and design of the city to be unique. And this was an adjustment to be sure. It felt odd to be Ezio in a place that was so much darker than the places that many of us have grew up with Ezio in. But honestly, this is a great shift. And as I mentioned earlier, this is very much a shift in the direction of Assassin's Creed. And to prepare us for the vastly different landscape that is Boston in AC3, I think it was a good idea to have us move to somewhere slightly different. I mean, can you imagine how weird that would have been from going from the brightly colored Venice to the dimly lit Boston? I think that dragging us out to a more dark and drab place was definitely the way to go. It only makes sense considering what would be the next to come. And the one other thing that is also dark and drab is Ezio's outfit. Unfortunately, as his outfit got darker, he lost his iconic assassin robes from the first two games. I'm quite sad about this, but in order for the franchise to truly progress, we had to let go of Ezio, and by extension, his classic outfit, which makes sense. And his new outfit has some armor plates in it that are actually visible compared to the solid robes of Brotherhood and AC2, and he'll be needing them. As most of you already expected, Revelations has the exact same combat as Brotherhood. There are two changes. The hook blade can be used in combat for different animations, and to be able to leg sweep enemies and knock them to the ground. The other change are bombs. Oh boy, how do I even talk about bombs? These are the one real addition to the game that's truly worth mentioning, basically at all. What happens is that as you loot enemies in the world, you'll come across different materials, types of gunpowders, and casings. These materials can then be used to be crafted into bombs and configured to your own liking. Some forms of gunpowder make a larger explosion that has the chance of more civilian casualties, while some are smaller and more condensed. But where the customization really comes in is the fact that there can be different shells and materials inside of each bomb. You can make a bomb explode on impact, have a 3-second delay, and anything of the sort. Inside the bomb could be poison, shrapnel, or needles. All of these things act differently. For example, shrapnel makes a standard explosion that you've come to expect from any game that ever uses grenades. Poison creates a large cloud of poison, well, as it would suggest, that can damage and kill enemies. Needles can be spread over the battlefield as a sort of aerial denial. You can hold 3 different combinations of bombs in your inventory to make sure you aren't only locked into one. And what's really cool is that there are so many configurations for these. You can have a poison bomb with a 3-second delay and with a large explosion radius. These things are so cool to be able to figure out and configure to your own liking. Using these doesn't really require any skill at all, and more of just being decent enough to know the mechanics of the game. This is really good for someone who's just getting into the game, because stuff like this could normally get complicated to learn, but I'm actually glad that it's pretty easy, it's simple. But there's a tiny problem with the bombs, and they're useless. When combat is as easy as chain killing and chain killing as it is in Revelations, it doesn't need to be much easier. It's very weird how the game pushes you to make these bombs all the time, but never incentivizes you to use them. They aren't at all as efficient as the developers would like to make you believe they are. Like, these bombs seem to be such a big part of the game, but I've never used them except to record footage. While we're still in combat, I need to talk about the notoriety system. Unlike in the last 2 games, notoriety doesn't make every guard in the city attack on sight when you've committed a crime. Instead, it sets gangs on a crusade to destroy your city. These result in one of the weirdest additions to Assassin's Creed that I've ever seen. Tower defense. I kid you not, tower defense. Those of you that have been following me for a long time know I actually started this channel as a Balloons tower defense channel. Yeah, that's right, this channel that reviews and critiques Assassin's Creed games used to be a Balloons TD Let's Play channel. So, now that I've gotten my, interesting past off my chest, let's go more in depth about what the hell this is. So, basically, what's going on is that Ezio will stand on top of a roof as hordes of enemies try to break through barricades to get to the central assassin tower at the center. Ezio has to call in reinforcements to make sure that they are killed before they do so. As more people get killed, you gain more troops, and in return, these points can be spent to get more troops on rooftops. Towers range from bombers to snipers to archers to even flamethrowers. These battles normally last for 5 to 10 minutes depending on how good you are at the game, and in all honesty, this seems to be the weirdest minigame I've ever seen. I mean, maybe beside Rogue's naval campaign. It just seems so out of place in an Assassin's Creed game, I mean especially the Ezio trilogy. It's more content, which is nice, but I just don't understand what went through Ubisoft's mind when they greenlit these projects. I mean, they're fun. These are fun minigames, look at this. It's just out of place, that's all. It's very strange. But it is fun, I'll give it that. It's fun, something new for the franchise. Not sure if I ever wanted to return though. It's very strange, just weird. But on the other hand, what is pretty solid is the story. While the story, as I mentioned earlier, is disconnected from Ezio's original 2 games, it isn't bad by any means. I really like the central focus of the story being Altair and Masyaf Castle. It's a nice little way to send off the man who started the entire series. There are some pacing issues, especially towards the end when Ezio goes to an entirely new city in order to find another target. It just feels very weird being transported there and having a mini storyline when we're so close to finishing the game. But other than that, I think the story is pretty solid. And you know what else is solid? The soundtrack. Made by Lauren Boff and co-composed by Jesper Kyd, it's great. I mean, it feels a bit generic. Like, if you didn't know it was a Revelations track, I wouldn't have guessed that it was from Revelations. Some tracks just seem like a random YouTube channel made them and posted them online. The tracks don't seem to have a theme running through them. While there are main vocals that have carried through the track, there isn't much consistency to them. So while it isn't my most favorite or most memorable soundtrack, it's pretty nice. Lauren Boff returned in what is arguably the best soundtrack in any of the AC games, Assassin's Creed 3, as its main composer. But unfortunately, Jesper Kyd left the series after Revelations. But fear not, he is one of the 3 main composers for Valhalla, which he did an absolutely amazing job with, as always. And going back to my earlier points, is Revelation the worst of the Assassin's Creed Ezio trilogy? I actually don't think so. I really like the story, especially the Altair segments, and everything else is very strong as well. The only thing that I outwardly don't like are the bombs in the tower defense. Okay, well, I know that those are 2 things out of the 3 additions to the game, but I think its story and combat still make the game feel very good. And there's not much you can really expect from this. This is, in fact, the 3rd game in a trilogy and its conclusion. I wouldn't expect them to change much. It's probably for the better that they kept it very bare bones and, well, frankly, normal. Anyway, that's going to be all for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and, well, frankly, I'm so glad to be done with the Ezio trilogy. I started the Non-Nostalgia Review series half a year ago, and have finally gotten around to finishing it. I am so glad that I can finally put this to rest, or at least the Ezio trilogy. But don't worry, the non-nostalgic reviews will continue to come out as I play more Assassin's Creed games, so those will not be gone from the channel. But on another note, if you watched my Halo video, which I'm sure most of you didn't, it did horrible, so yeah, that may impact the future of this channel and what I post, so it probably means that I'll most likely just only upload Assassin's Creed videos, and I may not do my Doom videos, which I'm kind of sad about, considering I have everything recorded, but I don't know, I'll see how it goes. But yeah, next coming up is my AC3 video, and by the amount of times I've brought it up in this video alone, you can probably expect me to have a very positive opinion of the game. But anyway, that's it, and I hope you enjoyed my video, and if you made it to the end, love you all, and have a nice day.